First Contact and Diplomatic Disaster. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Defense Council chamber stretched toward the artificial sky, their surfaces refracting the light of 12 different suns from across the known universe. I, Commander Vexo Bri I of the 7th Galactic Fleet, stood before the assembled council, my scales flushing a deep purple with barely contained frustration. The holographic display before us showed what I considered to be the most absurd defensive strategy I'd ever encountered in my 3 centuries of service. "You cannot be serious," I exclaimed, slamming my 4-fingered hand onto the pristine crystalline table. These humans are building their defenses with rocks and metal." "Rocks? And you're telling me we should be worried?" The grainy footage continued to play, showing humans in their primitive protective gear hauling concrete blocks and welding steel beams. The sight would have been comical if not for the grave expressions on the faces of the council members. Supreme Counselor Zenith Sparkweaver fixed me with that irritatingly patient look she reserved for those she considered particularly dense. "Perhaps, Commander, you'd care to explain why 3 of our advanced scout ships failed to penetrate their outer defensive line?" "Technical malfunctions, obviously," I said, waving my hand dismissively. The motion sent ripples through my ceremonial cape, causing the embedded light crystals to flutter like startled starlings. "Our quantum phase shields are simply incompatible with their planet's magnetic field." Nothing more. The chamber fell silent. 12 pairs of eyes, some compound, some singular, some wavelength sensitive, fixed on me with varying degrees of disbelief. Controller Rex Lightseeker's clicking mandibles betrayed his amusement, though he tried to suppress it. Our first encounter with humans had been a masterclass in catastrophic diplomacy. When our long-range sensors detected their primitive spacecraft approaching the arrival arm, we had assumed they were just another species stumbling their way into galactic society. The kind that barely managed faster-than-light travel and probably still celebrated discovering electricity. The narrative continues to detail the first diplomatic meeting between humans and the Galactic Council, revealing how the humans had already decoded their supposedly secure communications and understood their advanced technology. Through a series of diplomatic blunders and underestimations, the Council's attempts to impress the humans with their advanced technology backfire spectacularly. The humans' chief scientist, Dr. James Chen, had casually pointed out vulnerabilities in our most advanced systems as if discussing the weather. Captain Maria Torres had smiled that infuriating smile when revealing they had already figured out our classified military specifications months ago. The whole encounter had been a continuous series of shocks that should have warned us about what was to come. But we hadn't listened. Instead, we had done what any advanced civilization would do when faced with a potentially dangerous primitive species: we decided to contain them. The Council voted, with my enthusiastic support, I'm embarrassed to admit, to establish a protective quarantine around their solar system. As Captain Torres departed our ship, she had paused at the airlock. "Commander Bri I," she said, reading my name badge, "a piece of advice: don't mistake simplicity for weakness. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones." Now, standing before the Council and watching the footage of humans constructing their seemingly primitive defenses, those words returned to haunt me. The holographic display showed something that made my secondary heart skip a beat: a massive wall, not an energy barrier but actual physical material, stacked together and stretching across the horizon. "Those mirrors," Controller Rex finally spoke up, his mandibles now perfectly still, "are positioned at exactly the right angles to reflect our laser weapons back at their source. The composition of their concrete contains minerals that disperse our plasma bolts. Even the spacing of their metal reinforcements, it's like they're mocking us." "Surely you don't mean..." I began, but the words died in my throat. "Yes, Commander," Zenith's eyes glowed with an intensity that made me want to hide under my ceremonial cape. "These supposedly primitive humans didn't just get lucky. They studied us. They understood us. And using nothing but the raw materials of their world, they built something our most advanced technology cannot defeat." "Well," I said, trying to salvage some dignity, "at least they don't have quantum computers." The entire council chamber erupted in laughter. Zenith just shook her head. No, Commander, they have something far more dangerous, they have ingenuity. As I stood there, watching the humans continue their construction with methodical precision, a terrible realization began to dawn. We hadn't just underestimated them, we had fundamentally misunderstood what made a civilization truly advanced. And now, we were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The council meeting concluded with a decision that would prove to be our first step toward a humbling revelation. We would proceed with our containment strategy, deploying our most advanced fleet to establish a quantum barrier around their solar system. As I left the chamber, Admiral Cor Nightwhisper's words echoed in my mind. Has anyone considered that the humans might have anticipated this? The pride before the fall. The war room of the Galactic Defense Council hummed with anticipation. Holographic displays filled the air with swirling tactical projections, fleet formations, and weapon trajectories. The gathered military leadership of the most advanced civilization in the known universe was preparing for what we believed would be a swift and decisive demonstration of our superiority. General RX Stormwind's tentacles rippled with pride as he outlined our strategy. The plan is brilliant in its simplicity, he declared. We'll deploy our newest Mark 7 quantum shield matrix around their entire solar system. No weapons in or out, no communications, no trade. They'll be completely isolated. I nodded enthusiastically from my position at the tactical display. Finally, we would show these humans their proper place in the galactic hierarchy. And the best part, I added, is that they won't even be able to see our shield matrix. It exists partially in 11 different dimensions. The assembled admirals and generals murmured in appreciation. All except Admiral Cor Nightwhisper, who had been unusually quiet during our planning sessions. She stood near the back of the room, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what I now recognize as deep concern. Has anyone considered, she asked slowly, her voice cutting through the self-congratulatory atmosphere, that the humans might have anticipated this? With what technology? I scoffed, my scales rippling with amusement. They're still using combustion engines in some of their vehicles. The same humans who spotted our cloaked scout ships, she countered. The ones who decoded our quantum-encrypted communications in a matter of weeks. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. General Stormwind cleared his throat, his tentacles twisting nervously. Nevertheless, we proceed as planned. The shield matrix will be deployed by our most advanced ships, the Dreadnought-class carriers. The holographic display shifted to show our fleet, 12 massive dreadnoughts, each carrying enough firepower to reduce a small moon to atoms. Their sleek forms bristled with quantum cannons and phase-shift generators. They were beautiful, expensive, and utterly unstoppable. Commander Vex Shadowblade stepped forward, his crystalline armor catching the light. The humans have no defense against this level of technology. Our intelligence suggests they're still building physical walls and bunkers. He chuckled. Imagine actually stacking materials instead of generating energy fields. This got a good laugh from everyone. Even Admiral Nightwhisper cracked a smile, though it seemed forced. The war room was filled with the sound of various species enjoying their own superiority. The deployment will begin at dawn tomorrow, General Stormwind announced. By sunset, the humans will be completely contained. Any questions? I raised my hand, my ceremonial cape shimmering with embedded quantum crystals. Just one, General. Should we prepare terms of surrender for them to sign, or just accept their verbal capitulation? More laughter. Someone in the back suggested we might want to use simple words and pictures since the humans were so primitive. The joke carried a sting of irony that we would only appreciate much later. Admiral Nightwhisper stood up quietly and headed for the door. Where are you going? I called after her. She paused, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what I now recognize as deep concern. To update my will, she said softly. I suggest you all do the same. But we were too busy congratulating ourselves on our brilliant strategy to notice the warning signs. Our long-range scanners had detected massive construction activity across the human solar system, but we dismissed it as desperate last-minute preparations. After all, what could they possibly build that would challenge our quantum technology? The next few hours were spent in elaborate preparation. Our fleet engineers conducted final checks on the shield matrix generators. The quantum harmonics were calibrated to perfection. The phase shift frequencies were synchronized across all 12 dimensions of spacetime. Everything was exactly as it should be. I retired to my quarters that evening feeling supremely confident. On my private viewing screen, I watched recordings of human construction efforts. They were building walls in space, actual physical walls. The sight of their primitive spacewalks and mechanical tools only reinforced my sense of superiority. Just before retiring, I received a personal message from Admiral Nightwhisper. It was brief: "Commander, have you ever wondered why a species that can decode quantum encryption would choose to build with concrete and steel?" I dismissed the message. Such philosophical questions seemed irrelevant on the eve of our triumph. Our technology was superior in every way. Our civilization had spent millennia perfecting the art of energy manipulation and quantum mechanics. What could a species that still relied on physical materials possibly do against that? As I prepared for sleep, my third heart beating steadily with anticipation, a small display on my desk showed the latest intelligence from Earth. The humans had gone suspiciously quiet. Too quiet. But again, I dismissed it as resignation to their fate. They must have realized the futility of resistance. In the morning, we would deploy our fleet. We would demonstrate the full might of our technological superiority. We would show these primitives the true meaning of advanced civilization. In the morning, we would learn the true meaning of hubris. Looking back, all the signs were there. The humans' casual understanding of our most advanced systems. Their seemingly primitive but oddly specific choice of building materials. The careful positioning of their defensive structures. Even their silence felt calculated, not fearful. But we were too blinded by our own technological superiority to see it. We had forgotten the most fundamental rule of warfare: never underestimate your opponent. We had dismissed their physical defenses as primitive without considering that they might represent not a lack of advancement, but a deliberate choice. As I drifted off to sleep that night, Admiral Nightwhisper's words echoed in my mind: why would a species that can decode quantum encryption choose to build with concrete and steel? The answer would come soon enough, and it would change our understanding of technology forever. The human response. When our long-range scanners first detected the massive construction activity across the human solar system, we dismissed it as desperation. The sheer scale of what they were attempting seemed absurd. They were transforming their entire asteroid belt into an interconnected network of fortifications. Commander Brya, Lieutenant Zex called out, his crystalline sensor arrays pulsing with confusion. "You need to see this footage from Earth's moon." The holographic display showed thousands of humans in environment suits, methodically dismantling entire lunar mountain ranges. They weren't just building defenses, they were reorganizing their celestial bodies with a precision that made my third heart flutter uncomfortably. "They're strip mining Luna," Admiral Soar Nightwhisper observed, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to show deep interest. "But look at the pattern, it's not random exploitation. They're reshaping the lunar surface into a weapon," I finished, my scales paling as I understood. The humans had transformed their moon into a massive gravitational lens, capable of focusing and redirecting any energy weapon we might deploy. Continued with detailed descriptions of how humans transformed their solar system, using seemingly primitive materials in ingenious ways. The narrative explores how humans used their understanding of advanced technology to create defenses that required no power sources, no complex machinery, and were virtually impossible to disable. Their strategy focused on using fundamental physics and materials science to create passive defensive systems that grew stronger when attacked, the failed offensive. The pride of the Galactic Defense Fleet, 12 dreadnought-class carriers, dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the Sol system. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of our civilization's achievement, massive ships powered by zero-point energy, protected by quantum phase shields, and armed with weapons that could reduce planets to atoms. I stood on the bridge of the flagship, the luminous Ascendant, watching as our first wave of automated attack drones approached the humans' outer defensive line. The humans had dubbed their defense system Project Boundless Bastion, a name that had seemed pretentious until now. First wave engaging in 3, 2, 1. Commander Vex announced. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Our first wave of quantum-shifted drones, designed to pass through physical matter as if it didn't exist, suddenly stopped dead in their tracks. They hung there, suspended in space, caught in what appeared to be nets. Impossible, I whispered, my scales blanching. They're using magnetized asteroid fields calibrated to the exact frequency of our phase shifting. The humans had turned their entire asteroid belt into a giant trap, using precisely calculated magnetic fields to catch our phase-shifted vessels like insects in a web. But that was just the beginning. Second wave, launch energy projectors. I ordered, trying to maintain composure. Our energy weapons, capable of cutting through planetary crusts, lanced out toward the human defenses. That's when we saw the true genius of their mirror arrays. The seemingly simple reflective surfaces weren't just positioned randomly, they formed an intricate network of angles and curves. Our energy beams didn't just reflect, they were caught in a cascade of redirections, each reflection bleeding off power until they dissipated harmlessly into space. Third wave, deploy quantum torpedoes. My voice was becoming desperate. The quantum torpedoes, our most devastating weapons, streaked toward their targets. The humans had built massive walls of their specialized concrete in space, arranged in concentric rings around their vital installations. As our torpedoes struck, something extraordinary happened. The concrete didn't shatter or vaporize, it absorbed the energy, the crystalline structure we had dismissed as primitive actually growing stronger with each impact. Sir, my tactical officer called out, they're launching a counterattack. I expected to see energy weapons or advanced missiles. Instead, I watched in horror as thousands of small, unpowered objects began moving toward our fleet. They were simple kinetic projectiles, launched using nothing more sophisticated than mechanical springs and gravitational assists. But their trajectories, they had calculated every possible evasion pattern our ships might take. Evasive maneuvers. I ordered, but it was too late. Our quantum shields, designed to stop energy weapons and matter in conventional states, proved useless against these simple projectiles. They were deliberately constructed to resonate with our shield frequencies, passing through them as if they weren't there. The damage was devastating precisely because of its simplicity. Sir, look at their lunar defense grid. The humans had transformed their moon into something unprecedented. They weren't using it as a weapons platform, they had turned it into a gravitational lens. Any energy weapon we fired near it was caught in its gravitational field, focused, and redirected back at us. They had weaponized orbital mechanics itself. Hour after hour, we tried every weapon in our arsenal. Each time, we were defeated not by superior technology, but by superior thinking. They had studied our every advantage and turned it into a weakness. Our phase shifting was countered by carefully tuned magnetic fields. Our energy weapons were defeated by precise geometric arrangements of simple materials. Our quantum shields were bypassed by projectiles specifically designed to exploit their fundamental properties. Commander, Admiral Nightwhisper's voice came through the command channel, we need to withdraw. We've lost 40% of our drone force, 3 dreadnoughts are severely damaged, and we haven't even scratched their outer defensive line. I stared at the tactical display, watching as our mighty fleet was being systematically dismantled by what we had dismissed as primitive technology. The humans hadn't just prepared for our attack, they had made our own technological superiority work against us. As I gave the order to retreat, a transmission cut through our quantum-encrypted communications with embarrassing ease. Dr. James Chen's face appeared on our main screen, still wearing that simple protective helmet. "Commander Bry, he said, wiping sweat from his brow, perhaps now would be a good time to discuss diplomatic alternatives. We've prepared a detailed analysis of the vulnerabilities in your fleet's design. We'd be happy to share it, as a gesture of good faith." The humiliation was complete. We had arrived ready to demonstrate our overwhelming technological superiority. Instead, we had received a master class in the principles of defensive warfare. The humans hadn't just defeated our weapons, they had defeated our entire understanding of what constituted advanced military technology. As our battered fleet limped back through quantum space, I couldn't help but recall Captain Torres's warning about mistaking simplicity for weakness. We had dismissed their primitive defenses, never considering that they might represent not a lack of advancement, but a fundamentally different, and ultimately superior, approach to military engineering. The after-action report I submitted to the Galactic Defense Council was the hardest document I've ever had to write. How do you explain to the most advanced civilization in the galaxy that they had been utterly defeated by cleverly arranged rocks and mirrors? The humans had taught us a harsh lesson: true technological superiority isn't about having the most advanced weapons. It's about understanding the fundamental principles of physics and engineering so well that you can defeat those weapons with the simplest possible solutions. As we retreated from the Sol system, leaving behind our shattered pride and valuable military assets, a final message came through from Earth's Unified Defense Command: "Your quantum encryption is impressive, but have you considered just using one-time paths? Sometimes the old ways are best." The laughter in their voice hurt almost as much as our defeat. A lesson in humility. 3 standard cycles after our failed offensive, I found myself once again standing before the Galactic Defense Council. This time, however, I wasn't there to advocate for military action. I was there to present our formal recommendation for a complete reassessment of how we classify and interact with primitive species. "The humans," I began, my voice carrying none of its former arrogance, "have shown us that technological advancement isn't just about energy fields and quantum mechanics. They took our most sophisticated technology and defeated it with rocks, mirrors, and clever engineering." Supreme Counselor Zenith nodded thoughtfully. "Tell us, Commander, what you believe is the most important lesson from this encounter." I activated the holographic display, showing footage from our failed assault. We were defeated not by superior technology, but by superior thinking. The humans didn't try to match our capabilities, they transcended them. While we focused on building ever more complex systems, they found elegant solutions in simplicity. The footage showed our quantum torpedoes harmlessly deflecting off angled surfaces, our phase-shifted ships becoming entangled in networks of magnetized asteroids, and our energy weapons being absorbed and dispersed by specially formulated concrete structures. Each failure was a masterclass in human ingenuity. But perhaps most humbling, I continued, was what happened after our defeat. The display shifted to show the message we'd received from Earth's Unified Defense Command. Captain Maria Torres, now Admiral Torres, appeared before us again, still wearing that same knowing smile. To the Galactic Defense Council, she had said, "We understand that our defensive measures have proven frustrating. But we want to be clear, this was never about superiority. It was about survival, yes, but also about proving a point. We're ready to talk when you are. And this time, perhaps we could skip the technology demonstrations and focus on genuine dialogue." The council chamber remained silent as I continued my report. The humans didn't just defeat our military, they challenged our entire understanding of civilization. When we finally agreed to diplomatic talks, they shared their defensive technologies freely. No demands, no conditions. And what did we learn from these exchanges? Zenith asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. We learned that true advancement isn't linear. The humans showed us that progress isn't just about moving forward, sometimes it's about looking sideways, or even backward. While we were busy developing quantum shields, they were studying ancient fortress designs. While we perfected AI-guided weapons, they were exploring mechanical countermeasures that needed no power source. I brought up one final hologram, a simple concrete wall from Earth's defensive line. This structure contains over 3,000 years of human military engineering knowledge, updated with modern material science. It's not just a wall, it's a testament to their ability to learn from history while embracing the future. The council chamber erupted in discussion as I presented our recommendations. The immediate reclassification of Earth as a pure civilization, with all associated rights and privileges. The establishment of a joint research initiative focusing on hybrid technology approaches. A complete overhaul of our species classification system, moving away from pure technological metrics. The creation of a new diplomatic corps trained specifically in recognizing and respecting alternative development paths. There's more, I added, my scales shifting to a shade of humble blue. The humans have offered to help us improve our defenses. They've identified numerous vulnerabilities in our supposedly advanced systems, vulnerabilities that could be addressed with their primitive solutions. Supreme Counselor Zenith rose from her seat, her crystalline form catching the light. And what do they want in exchange for this assistance? That's the most remarkable part, I replied. They only asked for one thing, that we share these lessons with other emerging civilizations. As they put it, the galaxy is too vast for any one species to claim superiority. The implications were profound. Our civilization, for all its technological marvels, had become complacent. We had equated complexity with advancement, forgetting that true innovation often lies in simplicity. In the cycles that followed, the galaxy changed. The human approach to defense became known as the Torres Doctrine, the principle that the most effective solutions often lie in combining ancient wisdom with modern understanding. Their defensive structures, which we had once mocked as primitive, became the foundation for a new school of military engineering. But perhaps the most significant change was in how we viewed ourselves. The humans hadn't just taught us about defense, they'd taught us about humility, innovation, and the dangers of technological arrogance. As I conclude this report, I'm reminded of Captain Torres's words during our first meeting, "Don't mistake simplicity for weakness." Looking back, I realize she wasn't just giving advice, she was offering us wisdom that had taken our civilization nearly falling to understand. The humans never did dismantle their Project Boundless Bastion. It stands to this day, a monument to ingenuity and a reminder that sometimes the strongest walls are built not with advanced technology, but with wisdom, creativity, and the courage to think differently. And every time I pass through Earth's solar system, seeing those massive concrete and steel structures floating in space, I smile, remembering how a species we once considered primitive taught the most advanced civilization in the galaxy its most important lesson: true advancement lies not in the complexity of your tools, but in the wisdom to know when simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.